I'm ready.
All right, go. Five, four, three, two, one, go.
Hello, how's everyone today? I'm here to tell you about some of the stories that I learned, whether they're true, half true, or not or untrue. They were stories we told and shared about the McCollum family. While we had a grandfather and a grandmother, we always referred to them back down the line when I was younger, and most other people did, as Mr. Mac and Miss Daisy. In beginning, some of the stories that I might relate to you are the ones that happened around Christmas time. Because one thing about it, Granddaddy's or Mr. Mac's birthday was always on the 4th of July. And so the two gathering times each year for most of the families were 4th of July and Christmas time. In the beginning, when the Christmas rolled around, one of the things we always did, or Mr. Mac would always do, would be to hitched the trailer up to the tractor, and all the grandchildren that were down there at the time would hop on, and we'd go traveling through the woods until we found just the right Christmas tree to cut and bring back to the house and decorate for Christmas. And it was always a lot of fun because we didn't do it much before Christmas, but we certainly had a good time decorating it. Another thing we did one time at Christmas was when it happened to snow a lot. There was only one time I can remember being down there at Christmas that it actually snowed, but we got a lot of snow. And we decided we were going to build a sled. So we got together and we built it and we had it, but then we had to have some locomotion. And we got Granddaddy's old horse and had some harness that he used to use with the mules, hooked it up to the sled, and we went traipsing across the countryside. And then there was always Santa Claus coming to Mr. Mac and Miss Daisy's house. And what they would do when Santa Claus was coming, they'd take all of us, and I'll have to digress for a minute and tell you the house at that time was the big old house that was 2 story. I think it had 8 bedrooms in it, and it was all heated by fireplaces. So it was quite different than the house they had later on after the old house burned. And they would make us all go upstairs and tell us they were going to tell us a story. Then they would come back and you would hear this rattle, rattle, rattle. It sounded like bells ringing. And they'd start the adults downstairs, well, Santa Claus, good to see you. And you'd hear a ho, ho, ho. And they wouldn't let us go downstairs because they said, you just can't do that right now. They'd get out all the Christmas presents and then we'd start down the stairs and they'd say, bye, Santa. You come back next year. We'd get down there and Santa would be gone, but there would be all the Christmas presents. And we were just so happy that Santa came to see us. The other stories I have are about times when the we would the telephone for all of us that were city people and city boys and girls. We had I think it was an 8 party telephone line. And so if you ever wanted to use the telephone, you had to pick it up and see if anyone else were on the line. And if they were on the line, you'd have to wait till they were through, or you'd ask them to get off the line because you had an important call to make. But the other thing it served was to find out what was happening in the neighborhood. So sometimes I understand that some of our illustrious aunts and uncles would pick up the telephone and listen to it to find out what was going on, and particularly to see if they could start any rumors or squelch any rumors they needed to. The thing that was really interesting from time to time was when Mr. Mack, he was a voracious reader. He read all the time, but I don't think he had much more than a formal 8th grade education. But what he did do was send all of his kids, his children, I think all of them went to college. I don't know how many finished, but all of them at least attended. And they would all write letters while they were in college and after they got out. Mr. Mack only had about an 8th grade education. But what he would do is he would read those letters, then he would circle all the misspelled words and send it back to the writer. And so they all learned that they better spell their words right. They're going to write Mr. Mack a letter. Another time, we would have entertainment, and Martha was always the artistic one, and that's cousin Martha. She would come down with her puppets, and I can remember we had several puppet shows, and I was excuse me, I was at the age that it really I found that entertaining, and we look forward to seeing Martha and her puppets come back from year to year. But some of the really good stories I've heard, and these I didn't witness any of these, I just heard about them, was the one when Uncle Charlie and the neighbor boy decided they needed a little recreation in their life, and they built a still out in the woods. And the still was, I guess, working very well until Mr. Mack found out about it. And he decided that, well, he was a teetotaling man, that they didn't need that still. So he went out to the woods and destroyed the still. But he was one of those people that was waste not, want not. So he destroyed the still, but took all the old sour mash in the still. He took it back up to the barnyard to give to the hogs. But apparently the hogs never got into it, but the mules did. And the mules got where they couldn't stand up. Granddaddy thought they were going to die because they had some disease until they sobered up from eating all the sour mash. And another story was a time Uncle Ben, who was the youngest of all the children, was learning to shoot the rifle and shoot the gun. And he would go out with the older boys and they'd show him how to shoot, and he would shoot. But one time he got the rifle all by himself, and he wasn't much taller than the rifle was long. And he went out and down outside the house, and I don't know whether it's down by the pond or somewhere in that area, and he saw this big old bird. It happened to be a big old crow, and he grazed that rifle, and he shot the crow, and it fell out of the sky. He was so proud of himself, he went down there and got it, and he pulled it by its legs all the way back to the house, and he was getting ready to show everybody that old crow when, before everyone could get there, the old crow came to life, jumped up, and flew away. So he was rather disappointed. And the last one I will recount is one that happened with cousin Wayne McCollum and me when we were in college. And Wayne had an old red convertible that had a radio antenna on every fender, and he drove it fast and faster. That was the only two speeds he had. So one day when we were down at Granddaddy's house, Mr. Mack's house, we decided we needed to go to town. And he got his old car, and we got out, and this is before they'd paved all the roads, and we got almost about halfway to the Walker house, and we got stuck. Well, we didn't know what we were going to do, but there was an old road grader that was operated by the county out there. So we went out and fiddled around with it till we figured out how to get it started. And we drove that road grader up to the Walker house, which was down there where Walkerville was. And I went up to the front door, and I didn't go up and say, "My name's Roger Beecham. We need your help." I went up there and said, "I'm Jenny's boy, and could you get the tractor out and come pull us out?" Which they did, and we made it on the way to town. So those are some of the stories that I've had, and I certainly appreciated all the time I had there, because we were very lucky when my dad was gone off to World War II. Mom and I lived down there from time to time, and I got to know my grandparents pretty well, and I certainly enjoyed everything about it. But one last story about Grandma, or Miss Daisy, is that she read her Bible every night. And her Bible was a record player, because if you remember, or maybe you didn't know, but she was blind. And so she would get that record player out, and she would crank it up as loud as she could go. She was getting a little hard of hearing. And she would play her records. And if you didn't believe, you were a believer by the time she got through, because you got all the scriptures she could load into you in any given evening. But she did read her Bible, and she read it very well. So with these stories, I can just tell you that I'm very proud to be in this family, and it was such a good time to be down there, and the many things we got to do, and all the good cousins we had to spend time with was just outstanding. So I hope everybody here at the reunion has a good time and enjoys the family as I have over the years. Thank you.